Don't open it till I'm gone, my father said, pressing the old watch case into my hands with what little strength he had left. Promise me. Not till I'm gone. I promised, the way you promise a dying man anything, and I tucked it in my pocket and thought almost nothing of it, because I had spent 20 years thinking almost nothing of my father, and I did not expect a battered little box to change that. I was wrong about the box. I was wrong, it turned out, about nearly all of it. My name is Dana. I am 44 years old, and I am a hospice nurse in Bisbee, Arizona, an old copper mining town tucked into the hills near the Mexican border. It is a strange profession to land in, I know, for a woman who could not make peace with her own father. I spend my days helping strangers say the things to their families that they are running out of time to say. I am very good at midwifing other people's last words. I had simply never planned to need the skill at my own father's bedside, and I certainly never planned to be the one who had been getting the whole story wrong. Here is the father I thought I had. His name was Raymond, and he was a hard man, a closed door of a man. My mother left when I was 9, and after that it was just the two of us in a quiet house, and the quiet never lifted. He worked, he came home, he said little. He was not cruel. I want to be fair, he never raised a hand or his voice. But he was absent in the way that a wall is absent, present and solid and giving you nothing. He did not come to things. He did not say he was proud or that he loved me, not once that I can remember. I have 100 small memories of that quiet house, and for 20 years I filed every one of them under the same heading, proof. The dinners we ate without speaking, the radio left on so neither of us had to fill the silence. The school concerts I scanned the audience for him at and never found, though I learned, much later, that he sometimes stood at the back and left before the lights came up, because he did not know how to be a man who clapped. The birthdays marked by an envelope of cash left on the counter with no card. As a girl, I read all of it as coldness, as a father who simply did not feel much, and the reading hardened into certainty, and the certainty into a wall I stopped questioning. It never once occurred to me that a person could feel an enormous amount and have no idea on earth how to show it, that silence can be a symptom of too much feeling rather than too little. I had decided who my father was by the time I was 12, and I spent the next 30 years collecting evidence for the verdict and quietly throwing out everything that did not fit. And then came the years that I built my whole resentment on, the years I could never forgive. When I was 24, my life fell apart. I had a bad marriage to a worse man and a baby, and then a divorce that left me with nothing, working doubles and still drowning, terrified every single month. I remember the arithmetic of those years in my body still, the particular math of being poor, counting gas money in quarters, choosing between the electric bill and the pediatrician, lying awake doing sums that never came out right. My son was small and did not know how close to the edge we lived, and I burned myself down to nothing keeping it that way, keeping it invisible to him. I was proud, ferociously proud, the kind of proud that is really just fear wearing armor. I would not have asked my father for a dime if I had to sell blood first, and some months I came close to exactly that. And the whole time, 90 minutes up the highway, sat a man with a paid-off house and a steady pension, and as far as I could tell, no interest in whether his daughter and grandson sank or swam. Every time the phone did not ring, the wall got taller. Every birthday envelope of cash felt, to me then, like a man writing a check to get out of being a father. I had no idea. I had the facts exactly backwards, and I did not know it, and I built a fortress of grievance on a foundation that was, it turns out, a story I had told myself. And through all of it, through the eviction notices, through the months I fed my son and skipped my own meals, through the lowest 2 years of my life, my father, who lived 90 minutes away and was not a poor man, did, as far as I could see, nothing. He never offered. I was too proud to ask outright, and he, apparently, was too cold to notice, and I clawed my own way out of that hole alone, and I never forgave him for watching me do it. That was the story. My father let me nearly drown within driving distance and never threw a rope. I carried that for 20 years like a stone I'd grown used to. So when the call came that he was dying, pancreatic, fast, a matter of weeks, I did not feel grief. I felt a grim sense of duty, and maybe, if I am honest, a cold little wish to be in the room so that I could finally, before he went, make him understand what his silence had cost me. I took leave from work. I moved into his quiet house, and I nursed him, with my professional hands and my closed-off heart, through the last 6 weeks of his life. It is hard to stay at war with a dying man. I would say that. Day by day, doing the intimate work of it, the medications, the turning, the small humiliations of a body shutting down that he bore with a stubborn dignity, something in me started, against my will, to soften at the edges. We did not have any grand reconciliation. He was not suddenly a different man. He was still quiet, still locked. But there were small moments. He would watch me move around the room with an expression I could not read. Once, when I thought he was asleep, I heard him murmur, "You turned out strong," and I pretended not to hear it because I did not know what to do with it. There were other moments like that, small ones I collected without meaning to. The way his eyes followed me, hungry, when I changed his dressings, as though he were trying to memorize a face he had never let himself look at long enough. The afternoon he asked, out of nowhere, whether my boy, a grown man now, off at college, was doing all right for money, and when I said we managed, something crossed his face that I read at the time as indifference, and understand now was the exact opposite. A nurse learns to read the dying. We get good at the small tells of people with no time left to be indirect. And yet, I read my own father wrong right up to the last days, because I was reading him through 20 years of a story I was certain of. The expert was blind in the one room that was hers. That is a humbling thing to learn about yourself, and I will carry it into every bedside I sit at for the rest of my career. And then, the second to last day he was really lucid, he asked me to get the watch case from his dresser. It was an old thing, cracked leather, the kind a man used to keep a pocket watch in, and I had seen it my whole childhood and never once known what was in it. He held it for a moment, his hands shaking, and then he gave it to me and made me promise not to open it until he was gone. And then, 2 days later, he was gone. I did the things you do. I will spare you the funeral. It was small, and I was numb, and I got through it on the autopilot my job had built into me. And it was that night, after everyone had left, alone in the quiet house I had grown up unhappy in, that I finally remembered the watch case in my coat pocket, and I sat down at his kitchen table, and I opened it. It was full of paper, folded small, soft with age, some of it 20 years old, and it took me a few minutes of unfolding and smoothing before my hands understood what my eyes were seeing, before the room tilted and the 20-year-old stone I'd been carrying turned to water and ran out of me all at once. They were receipts, records, carbon copies and printouts and handwritten notes going back 2 decades, and every one of them was about me. There was a copy of a money order, dated the worst month of my worst year, made out to my old landlord, the month I had been sure I'd be evicted, and then, mysteriously, wasn't, and had assumed the landlord had simply made an error in my favor and held my breath about it for half a year. My father had paid it. There was a record of a payment to the hospital where my son had been born, the bill I had been dreading, and that had simply, one day, shown 0 balance, which I had chalked up to some charity program I'd never understood. My father had paid it. There were more: a car repair I'd never been billed for, a daycare account that had stayed mysteriously current during a stretch I knew I hadn't paid it, a check to my community college the semester I'd nearly dropped out for lack of tuition, and then somehow hadn't had to. Page after page after page, 20 years of it, every secret rope he had thrown into my hole without ever once letting me see his hand. I kept laying them out across the kitchen table, smoothing each one, building a timeline without meaning to, and the timeline was a map of my own survival, drawn in his handwriting. There was the month I had always called the worst of my life, the February I had been certain we would lose the apartment, and there it was, a money order, dated 3 days before the deadline I had lain awake dreading. He had known the dates. That was the thing that hollowed me out. He had not simply thrown money vaguely in my direction. He had known somehow precisely when each wave was about to go over my head, which meant he had been watching closely the entire time, tracking a daughter who never called him, keeping a quiet ledger of a life he was not allowed to be part of. He had been more present in my crises than I had ever been able to imagine, and he had made certain his presence left no fingerprints, and he had filed every receipt away in a watch case, like a man keeping the only kind of diary he knew how to write. And tucked in among them, in his cramped, hard hand, on a scrap of paper soft as cloth from being folded and unfolded, a note. It said, "She has too much of my pride to take it from my hand, so I will do it where she can't see. A father is still a father even when his daughter can't stand the sight of him. She never has to know. She never has to know." I sat at that kitchen table and I wept in a way I had not wept since I was a child, because in one evening, the entire architecture of my life had been pulled down and rebuilt. The man I had resented for 20 years for throwing me no rope had been throwing me ropes the entire time, in the dark, anonymously, so carefully that I had spent 2 decades believing I had climbed out alone. Every disaster I thought I had survived by myself, he had quietly been underneath, holding it up. And he had done it in a way that guaranteed he would get nothing back for it. No thanks, no softening, no repaired relationship, because the only way he knew how to give it was in a way I would accept, which was a way I could not see. I have had to sit with why he did it like that, and I think I finally understand, and the understanding is the saddest and the truest thing I own now. We were the same, my father and I. That is the whole tragedy. I was too proud to ask him for help. He knew I was too proud to ask, because he was exactly that proud himself. It was his pride I'd inherited. And he was too closed, too frightened of being refused, too unpracticed at love that uses words, to offer it to my face and risk me throwing it back at him. So he found the one channel that let a proud, locked man help a proud, locked daughter. Invisibly. He could not say I love you. He had never once been able to say it. But he could pay my landlord at midnight and tell no one. That was his I love you. He had been saying it over and over for 20 years in the only language he had, a language so quiet that I, the supposed expert in the last words of the inarticulate, had not heard a single syllable of it until he was dead. I thought that night about all the times I had been short with him, cold on the phone, quick to get off the line, the Christmases I had shown up late and left early and let him see exactly how little I wanted to be there. He had taken all of that, every cool word, every visit I could not wait to end, and absorbed it without defense, because he believed, I think, that he deserved it, that a father who could not say the words had no right to ask for warmth in return. He let me punish him for a neglect that was never happening. He sat there and took the bill for a crime he had not committed, and paid my actual bills in the dark on the side, and never once said the single sentence that would have set the whole record straight. "Dana, it's been me. I've got you. I've always had you." One sentence. He died rather than say it, and I have to live now knowing he chose the silence over the relief, for both of us, every single day for 20 years. Now, I have to be honest about the hard part of this, because it would be a lie to wrap it up in pure sweetness, and you have come to expect the honest version here. There is real grief in this, and there is also real anger, and the anger is not entirely gone. Because here is the thing, his way of loving me, however real, robbed us both. It robbed me of 20 years of knowing my father loved me. It robbed him of 20 years of being loved back, of being thanked, of a daughter's warmth he badly wanted, and went to his grave pretending he didn't need. His pride and his silence did not just hide a bad thing. They hid a beautiful thing, and a hidden beautiful thing helps no one, warms no one, repairs nothing. I would rather have had a father who looked me in the eye and said, "I'm struggling to know how to help you, but I love you and I'm trying," and given me far less money, than a father who secretly saved my life and let me hate him for it. Love that cannot be seen does the work of love, but it does not do the other thing love is for, which is to be known. He gave me the rescue, he kept the relationship, and he chose that, and I have to be a little angry at the choice, even as I am breaking with gratitude for the gift, and both of those are allowed to be true at the same time. They are true at the same time, in me, right now. I keep the watch case on my own dresser now, with the receipts back inside it, folded the way he folded them. I take it down sometimes and hold it, the way he must have. I have forgiven him. Not in a single clean moment, because that is not how forgiveness actually works, but in the slow, daily way you forgive someone you can no longer argue with, where the forgiving is really just the anger wearing softer year by year, until what is left underneath is mostly grief and love. I have also forgiven myself, which was harder, for the 20 years of resentment I aimed at a man who had not earned it, because I see now that I was working with the only information I let myself have, and that a person can be wrong for a very long time in perfect good faith. We were both doing our best with broken tools, my father and I. We just never once managed to do it in the same room, out loud, where it might have done us some good while we were both still alive to feel it. But here is where I have landed, and it is the thing I most want to hand to you. I will never get to thank him. That door is closed forever, and the regret of it is a permanent tenant in me now. But there are people in your life, right now, that you have a story about. A story in which they failed you, in which they didn't show up, in which they gave you nothing when you needed everything. And I am here to tell you, from a kitchen table in Arizona, with 20 years of secret receipts spread out in front of me, that you might be wrong. Not always. Sometimes people really do fail us, and that is real too. But sometimes the rope was there, and you just couldn't see the hand. Sometimes the love was enormous, and it was simply mute. Before you carry a resentment to someone's grave, the way I almost did, go and look. Ask. Open the watch case while they can still tell you what's inside it. If you have ever found out too late that someone loved you far more than you ever let yourself believe, then this story is for you. One word in the comments if it found you. Quiet. Just that. It is for every father who couldn't say it, every parent who loved in a language you couldn't hear, and everyone who is realizing, maybe right now, that the silence they resented might have been full the whole time. Subscribe for new stories, real patterns, full narratives, the long game. 2 small pieces of wisdom from this one before I go. The first, not everyone who loves you will love you in a language you can read. Some people, often the ones who were raised by silence themselves, simply cannot make the words, and so they translate love into the only things they can do. They fix your car without being asked. They pay a bill in the dark. They show up early and leave without a word. They worry about you in a room you are not in. If you spend your life waiting to be loved only in the loud, legible ways, you will miss the people loving you fluently in the quiet ones, and you may not discover your mistake until it is far too late to thank them. Learn to read the quiet languages. Watch what people do in the dark when they think you are not looking. That is very often where the realest love is kept. The second, if you are one of those quiet ones, if you love hard and cannot say it, if your pride or your fear keeps you helping people only in ways they will never trace back to you, please hear me, because I have now seen the cost of it from both sides of a kitchen table. Your invisible love is real, and it is good, but it is only half the gift. The other half is letting them know. Do not be so proud or so afraid of being refused that you rob the people you love of the simple knowledge that they are loved by you. My father saved my life and let me grieve him as a man who never lifted a finger, and that is a tragedy he chose, and it did not have to be that way. Throw the rope if you must throw it in secret, but also somehow, before the end, let them see your hand. Some people love you loudest in the things they never tell you about, so before you decide a person failed you, look for the love they were too proud or too frightened to let you see. I'll see you next time.